said you probably know my name. If you don't, it's Arkansas Day.
George Strait's lifestyle encompasses far more than his legendary music career, which has sold over 120 million records worldwide. With an unprecedented 60 #1 hits across all genres, Strait has certainly built an impressive professional legacy since his birth in Poteet, Texas, in 1952. Beyond his musical achievements, Strait's personal life is equally remarkable. Together, his family navigated joys and sorrows. In this video, we'll get into how life has been coming along for them since the last time you saw them in the news to date. Eager to hear from them? Sit back and watch till the end. From high school to 50-plus years of marriage. So, have you ever heard a love story that just makes you pause, smile, and say, "Wow, that's the real deal?" Because honestly, that's exactly what George Strait and Norma Voss's romance feels like. One of those rare, quiet, no flashy drama kind of love stories that's been blooming in the background of country music for over 5 whole decades. And not just surviving, but truly thriving. It's not some over-the-top tabloid kind of tale either. It's simple. It's steady. It's beautiful. And if you've ever wondered what real commitment looks like, well, here it is. George Strait might be the king of country, but do you know what he's really like behind closed doors? Wait till you hear how he and Norma keep their love so strong after all these years. You're going to want to sit tight, because we saved the most surprising details for the final moments. Now let's rewind the clock and start from the beginning. In a tiny Texas town, Pearsall, to be exact, just about 50 miles outside of San Antonio. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and high school hallways double as lifelong memory lanes. That's where George and Norma first crossed paths. They were just 2 regular teens walking the same halls, probably passing each other without thinking much of it. In fact, George even admitted, "We knew each other forever. Growing up in a small town, I never really even thought anything about her." Crazy, right? Who would have thought the girl he barely noticed would eventually become his everything? But fate's funny like that. One day, something just clicked. George asked her out. They went on a date, and boom, something started. But wait, then they just drifted apart. As young love often goes, they kinda just let it fade. Nothing dramatic, no huge breakup, just life, you know? But here's where it gets really sweet. Sometime later, George had one of those, "Oh no, what am I doing?" moments. He said, "Then one day I thought, I'm missing the boat here," and we started dating again. Like a scene in a rom-com, where the guy realizes he's letting go of the girl he shouldn't. That right there, that moment, that's when everything started to fall into place. Now fast forward to December 4th, 1971. George was 19. Norma was just 17. And what did they do? They eloped. Yes, straight to Mexico. 2 teenagers in love, running off to say their vows in a foreign country like it was the most natural thing in the world. Later, George explained it simply during a concert in Las Vegas. "So, we fell in love. We went to Mexico and eloped." Just like that. No big production, no fancy frills, just 2 people who knew they wanted forever with each other. But of course, they didn't leave their loved ones out completely. When they got back to Texas, they had a small church ceremony back in Pearsall for their close friends and family. It was sweet, intimate, down to earth, just like them. Not long after, George enlisted in the U.S. Army and got stationed in Hawaii. And guess who went with him? Yes, Norma, she wasn't just his wife. She was his ride or die from the very beginning. And honestly, that's kind of been the theme of their entire relationship. Through every twist and turn life's thrown at them, fame, parenting, personal loss, career highs and lows, they've stuck together. Always. That's probably why their bond has lasted more than 50 years. It's not just about love, but friendship. They didn't just build a life. They built a partnership. They supported each other when things were amazing, and especially when things weren't. And isn't that what we all secretly, or not so secretly, want? One of the most touching moments in their story came during their 50th wedding anniversary celebration in 2021. George was performing in Las Vegas, still doing what he loves, and right there on stage in front of a whole crowd, he serenaded Norma with "I Cross My Heart." Can you imagine that scene? This legend of a man, looking out into the audience, eyes probably searching for just one person, his wife, and singing her their song. He got emotional too. And let's be real, who wouldn't? They've gone through the happiest chapters together, but they've also weathered the heartbreaking ones. And that kind of balance of holding hands during the sunny days and the storms is what makes their story so powerful. George once said in an interview, "Norma and I are so blessed that we found each other, and we're able to do all of this together, experience this life together, to support each other through everything, good times and bad." And it's not just words. You can feel that truth in the way he says it. Like, you know he means it with his whole heart. And perhaps the most down-to-earth, honest piece of wisdom he ever shared about their marriage. He said, "We love each other, and we still like each other a lot." Isn't that so pure, so simple, and yet so rare? Because at the end of the day, love can be loud, passionate, messy, but liking someone, that's a choice you keep making. And they've clearly made it, every single day for over 5 decades. George and Norma's love story isn't about big drama or fairy tale fluff. It's about choosing each other, even when life gets messy. It's about growing up together, evolving as a couple, and still finding joy in the little things. It's about falling in love, not just once, but again and again over the years. Their story is proof that even in a world full of breakups and chaos, a steady, quiet, deeply rooted love can still exist. And honestly, that kind of love, it's the kind that makes you believe in forever. Family life and personal tragedy. Parenthood was a whole new world for George and Norma Strait. It wasn't just about sleepless nights or baby bottles. It was something deeper, something that would fill their hearts in a way nothing else ever could, and eventually break them in a way no one ever really recovers from. You know how some moments just shift your entire life? That's exactly what happened when they became parents. George and Norma, still practically kids themselves, had just eloped not too long before they welcomed their first baby, little Jennifer Lynn Strait, into the world on October 6, 1972. George was only 20. Can you imagine? Barely out of his teenage years, still figuring out life, and suddenly he was holding this tiny human in his arms who was going to look up to him for everything. It was scary, sure, but it was also magical. They were young, but they were in love. And now they had this baby girl who made everything feel real. Fast forward 9 years later, and boom, along came Bubba, officially named George Strait Jr., born on June 14, 1981. The house got a little louder, a little livelier, and just like that, their family felt more complete. The age gap between Jennifer and Bubba didn't seem to matter much. If anything, it gave their bond this sweet older sister, younger brother vibe that George would later say made him feel at peace. Like, have you ever watched two siblings interact in a way that makes you step back and think, wow, that's real love right there? That's how Jennifer was with Bubba. She wasn't just his sister, she was like a mini-mom. Of course, they had their little squabbles like all siblings do, probably arguing over toys or what show to watch. But at the end of the day, she always made him feel like he'd won, even if he hadn't. George once said, she was like a second mother to Bubba. They had their arguments like brother and sister do, but in the end, she always made Bubba feel like he came out on top. I mean, how heart-melting is that? Life was rolling along for the Strait family. George was chasing his dreams in country music, slowly becoming the icon we all know today. And at home, they were just like any regular family, raising their kids, figuring things out, and building beautiful memories. But then, out of nowhere, everything changed. It was one of those moments that punch you in the gut, take your breath away, and make the world feel like it just stopped spinning. On June 25, 1986, something unthinkable happened. Jennifer, just 13 years old, was killed in a car accident near San Marcos, Texas. Just like that. Gone. No warning, no chance to say goodbye. She was riding in a Ford Mustang with some friends when the driver lost control while trying to take a turn too fast. The car rolled. Jennifer had her window open and wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She was ejected from the vehicle and died at the scene. And just like that, the bright, joyful light in their family went out. Like, how do you breathe after something like that? How do you wake up the next day and make breakfast? How do you keep going when the sound of her laugh still echoes in the hallway, but she's not there? George didn't talk about it publicly for a long time. And who could blame him? He once said in an interview with The New Yorker years later, I just kind of shut down. I just didn't feel like talking about it, so I quit doing interviews. And that's exactly what he did. He pulled back from the spotlight, stopped doing press, and quietly kept on singing. Not for the fame, not for the fans, but because, in his own words, it was the only way I was going to be able to cope with it. And that's the thing, right? Grief doesn't always make sense. It doesn't follow rules. You just find little ways to keep yourself standing. And for George, music became that thing. The one thing that helped him stay upright when the weight of loss was too heavy. But even through all that pain, George and Norma found a way to honor their daughter's memory in the most beautiful way. In 1987, they started the Jennifer Strait Memorial Foundation. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't something George constantly promoted or talked about in interviews. It was deeply personal, quiet, sacred. The foundation was their way of turning unimaginable pain into something good. It supports children's charities, especially in the San Antonio area where the family lives. The way it works is simple. Donations are placed in an investment fund, and the earnings from that fund are distributed annually to organizations like the Boys and Girls Club of San Antonio, St. Jude's Ranch, Boysville, Greater San Marcos Youth Council, and the Carver Academy. So many kids have been helped because of that foundation. So many young lives have been touched, all in Jennifer's name. And you know what? Even though George doesn't bring it up a lot, you can feel how important it is to him. That foundation is a quiet, ongoing whisper of Jennifer's name. It's a soft reminder that while she may no longer be here, her spirit is still very much alive in the love and help that's being passed forward. It's kind of beautiful when you think about it, how the light of one child can go on to brighten the path for so many others. That's what legacy is all about, isn't it? At the end of the day, George and Norma's journey through parenthood was filled with both unspeakable joy and unbearable sorrow. From the giggles of two kids playing in the living room to the silence that followed a tragic night in June, their story is one of resilience, deep love, and the kind of strength that doesn't always roar, but keeps going anyway. And if you ask me, that's the kind of strength that means the most. George Strait has built an empire of hits, but his real life is even more fascinating. What does he spend his millions on? How big is his house? And does he really live like a cowboy? And Norma, how did she stay so private and still become one of the most admired women in country music? Trust me, you'll want to hang in there, because what we reveal at the end is something most fans have never heard before. The lifestyle of George Strait Hobbies, Houses, and Norma Strait. George was raised on his family's 2,000-acre cattle ranch near Big Wells, Texas, and it's interesting how much that upbringing still shapes the man he is today. He's not out here pretending to be country. He is country, through and through. It's not just a vibe for him, it's his actual life. Way before he ever had crowds singing his lyrics or fans throwing hats on stage, George was just a regular guy out there doing real, tough ranch work. And we're not talking about some photo op cowboy thing either. He was deep in it, boots on the ground, sunburn on the neck kind of work. He managed the Hart Ranch in Martindale, Texas, and later worked as a foreman in San Marcos. And get this, he wasn't doing it for fun or to pass time. He was doing it because he needed to make ends meet. "I was doing the ranching to supplement my income," he once said. Like, imagine that. George Strait, yes, the George Strait, once just trying to make ends meet like the rest of us. And even though he admitted it was hard work, he genuinely loved it. How many people do you know who'd say they loved ranching while being knee-deep in cow manure and Texas heat? Only someone who really lives and breathes it. And let's talk about how he didn't just leave that part of his life behind when the music started taking off. No, he blended the two worlds beautifully. In 1983, way back when, he started the George Strait Team Roping Classic. Yeah, like his own roping tournament. Not some random name on the flyer thing. He actually founded it and made sure it was top tier. Today, it's one of the most respected events in team roping. It hands out over $300,000 in cash and prizes, which is no small thing. But what really gets me is how hands-on George still is with it. He personally helps pick and train the steers used in the competition. Like, really? With everything else he has going on? That's commitment on a whole other level. Isn't it kind of refreshing to see someone who didn't let fame pull them away from what they love? And even when he's not on the stage or the ranch, George is still soaking up every ounce of the great outdoors. He's one of those guys who's just happiest outside. Fresh air, wide skies, peace and quiet. "I like to be outdoors, I like to hunt, I like to fish, I like to play golf," he once shared. And that wasn't just a casual mention. He really gets into it. Especially golf. That's kind of his thing now. Especially because it's something he gets to share with his son, Bubba. They play together a lot. And from the sound of it, Bubba's the one who usually wins. George says, "He has become a very good golfer. We're very competitive, but he usually beats me these days." Isn't that cute? It's like this little friendly father-son rivalry that they both clearly enjoy. And guess what? George even co-owns this resort called Tapatio Springs near Borneo, Texas. He helped turn it into a premier golf destination. Like, who knew? He's got his hand in everything, but it's all stuff that feels true to who he is. No gimmicks. Now, as much as George gets praised for his music and his lifestyle, let's not forget one of the biggest anchors in his life. His wife, Norma. Honestly, she's like the quiet force behind it all. And don't you just love stories where the couple is rock solid like that? George once shared in an interview that Norma stayed home and handled family life while he was on the road, especially while their son Bubba was growing up. She didn't travel with him regularly until Bubba had graduated high school and gone off to college. Think about that. While George was becoming a country music icon, she was holding everything down at home, giving Bubba a stable, grounded upbringing. That's a team right there. Not some flashy Hollywood romance, just two people quietly doing the work to make their life function. All in all, George Strait is kind of like this rare gem in the world of celebrity. He never got swept away by the lights, the tours, or the fame. He just kept living his life. Roping cattle, golfing with his son, loving his wife, and staying true to what matters most. And isn't that what we all want, at the end of the day? A life that still feels like ours, no matter how big the spotlight gets. Their Texas ranch and family proximity. George Strait is a country music legend, we all know that. But behind all the sold-out shows, chart-topping hits, and cowboy hats, there's this really sweet, tightly knit family life that they've managed to protect and keep sacred for decades. You'd think someone as big as George would be all about the glitz and glam. Always in some big city, or hopping from one red carpet to the next, right? But no. At the end of the day, what really matters to him is home. And home just happens to be spread out across multiple gorgeous Texas properties. That's where the magic really happens. Now, the main spot, the heart of it all, is where Bubba, George's son, lives with his wife Tamara and their two adorable kids, George Harvey Strait III and little Jillian Louise. And honestly, it's not like they live down the road or in another county or something. No, they're super close by, like literally nearby. Can you imagine how comforting that must be? To have your grandkids just a stone's throw away? So even though George is still out there making waves, probably strumming a guitar or charming a whole crowd somewhere, he still gets to have those small, everyday family moments, like swinging by for dinner, impromptu Sunday barbecues, or just sitting around sharing stories on the porch while the kids run around. It's kind of the dream, right? And then there's Norma. Oh, sweet, quiet, classy Norma. She's always been the calm in the storm, the one who's been holding it all together from behind the scenes. She's not the type you'd catch doing interviews or craving attention. If anything, she's the definition of low-key. But don't let that fool you. She's always been there, solid as a rock. You rarely see her in public, but when you do, you know it means something big. And one of those rare, heartwarming moments happened at the 2024 CMA Awards. George was being honored with the Willie Nelson Lifetime Achievement Award. Huge deal, right? The whole crowd was buzzing, lights flashing, applause ringing through the venue. But George, he stepped up on that stage with all that love and gratitude pouring out of him. And instead of just soaking in the spotlight, he turned the attention to Norma. Can we just pause for a second and talk about how special that is? Like, after all these years, almost 53, mind you, he still looks at her like she's the best part of his story. He literally said, "So great to have you all here, but especially Norma, who's supported me for just shy of 53 years in December." I mean, come on, that's not just a thank you. That's decades of love, loyalty, inside jokes, late-night talks, hard days, and quiet victories all wrapped up in one sentence. Who wouldn't want that kind of love story? And it makes you think, how many people in the public eye manage to stay that grounded, that in love, after all the fame, the travel, the pressure? It's rare, like finding a four-leaf clover in the middle of a rodeo. But they've done it. The Straits aren't just surviving the spotlight, they're thriving in the shadows of it, choosing family dinners over fancy galas and heartfelt tributes over flashy headlines. So while George Strait might be the king of country, it's pretty clear who really runs the show behind the scenes. It's the quiet strength of Norma, the closeness of Bubba and his family living just down the way, and that deep, unshakable bond that's been holding them all together for decades. Isn't that just the kind of life most people dream about? Not the awards or the fame, but the simple beauty of being surrounded by the people who truly know you and love you anyway. Honestly, if you ask me, that's the real achievement. Not just the lifetime of music, but the lifetime of love. He's the quiet kind of superstar, but George Strait's life is anything but boring. What kind of home does the king of country live in? What are his favorite things to do when he's not singing to thousands? And Norma, how did she become his forever girl in a world where celebrity marriages barely last? Stick with us until the very end. You won't want to miss the one thing that shows George Strait's true heart like never before. A legacy of love and support. Okay, picture this. You're sitting on the porch with your best friend, maybe sipping sweet tea or just watching the sun go down, and you're deep in one of those heartwarming convos where you just know you're about to cry a little from how beautiful life can be sometimes. That's exactly the vibe you get when you start talking about George Strait and the quiet but powerful force behind his decades of success, his wife, Norma. Like, have you ever looked at a couple and thought, now, that's the kind of love that holds the whole world together? Because honestly, George and Norma have been that for over 5 decades. And not in some fairy tale, overly perfect kind of way, but in that real ride or die. We've seen it all kind of way. Now here's the thing. George Strait isn't just the king of country because he can croon about love and heartbreak with that smooth-as-butter voice. No, 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 it's deeper than that. Behind every sold-out arena, behind every award speech, behind every hit song that's made someone's heart skip a beat, there's been Norma. You know how people say, behind every great man is a great woman? Well, Norma wasn't just behind him, she was beside him, every step of the way. And can you even imagine how tough it must have been during those early years, with George on tour and their son, Bubba, still growing up? Most people would have crumbled under the pressure, but not Norma. She held down the fort like a total queen, raising Bubba, managing their home, and creating this rock-solid base so George could chase his dream without everything else falling apart. And get this, when Bubba went off to college, Norma didn't just sit at home twiddling her thumbs. Nope, she hit the road with George, proving once again that they were in this thing together. Like, who does that? How many couples do you know that after decades of marriage still want to travel together full-time? That kind of commitment, it's rare, and it speaks volumes. In fact, at the 2024 CMA Awards, George got up there and in front of everybody, thanked Norma for sticking by him for what's now just shy of 53 years. 53 years. That's more than half a century of loving someone, supporting them, building a life with them. Doesn't that just make your heart melt a little? But it's not just about the music and the love story, though honestly, that part could be a whole movie by itself. It's also about the way they raised their son, Bubba. Because while George was becoming a country music legend, Norma was making sure their son had everything he needed to grow up strong and grounded. She was the steady hand at home, and it clearly paid off. Bubba didn't just grow up in the shadow of a superstar, he carved out his own path. He found his passion in rodeo, Can we just pause and appreciate how Texan that is? Went to Texas A&M and even joined the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association as a team roper. And George, he was right there, beaming with pride as he watched his son compete at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, before heading off to perform on the same stage. Like, how full circle and beautiful is that? And now George and Norma are soaking up the grandparent life, and you can tell it's their favorite role yet. They've got 2 grandkids, George Harvey Strait III, born in 2012, and Jillian Louise Strait, born in 2016, and they're totally wrapped around their little fingers. George has said before how grateful he is that Bubba and his wife Tamara decided to stay close by. And honestly, doesn't that just make your heart happy? There's something so sweet about generations sticking together like that. Little Harvey's already been up on stage with George, and it's like watching this whole new generation of the Strait family step into the spotlight. But in this really organic, heartfelt way. It's not forced. It's just love. You feel it. Oh, and here's the cherry on top. George and Bubba don't just bond over rodeo and family. They write music together. I mean, come on. Is there anything more touching than a father and son creating something beautiful together? George has admitted that it was Bubba who got him excited about songwriting again. Isn't that wild? After all the years of performing other people's songs, it was his own son who pulled him back into the creative process. And they've churned out some absolute bangers together. Living for the Night, Here for a Good Time, and Let It Go, just to name a few. Each one feels like a love letter to life, to family, to resilience. And during the final show of the Cowboy Rides Away tour in 2014, Bubba even got up on stage and performed a song he wrote solo, Arkansas Dave. Can you even imagine the pride George must have felt in that moment? Like, how do you top watching your kid stand tall on a stage you spent your whole life building? So when people talk about George Strait's legacy, it's easy to focus on the charts, the records, the awards. But honestly, the real story, the one that makes your soul feel warm and your eyes get a little misty, is the one about love, about sticking together, about building something real and lasting with the person who's been your home through every high and low. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.